now be starting with our first meetup of the AI Weekend. We are very happy to have with us Jean-Paul Sacy. Jean-Paul is an accomplished professional with 2 decades of structuring and solving complex technical and management problems for major energy, utility, and manufacturing corporations. Jean-Paul has developed and led wall-to-wall transformation programs covering strategy, digital operations, maintenance, and organization design across diverse environments in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, with a focus on asset-intensive companies. So with Jean-Paul's motto in life, never stop believing, never stop trying, and never stop learning, we shall begin our first meetup of the AI Weekend. So Jean-Paul, the floor is yours. You can go ahead and start with your presentation. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, Dalia, and it's a pleasure to be with all of you guys today. I can see that we do have quite a lot of participants today. That's amazing. So again, thanks for inviting me. As you've mentioned, curiosity is one of the things that kept me going, and probably one of the things that also helped me achieve what I've achieved over the last 2 decades, and definitely what I'm intending to achieve over the next 2 decades. I'm fairly new to the topic of AI. I wasn't a technologist. I've worked in consulting, as you rightfully indicated. I fell in between brackets into AI now 3 years ago when I was asked to lead a recently established JV between Baker Hughes, which is an oil and gas service company, and C3.ai, which is a leading tech/AI company based in the US. And since then have had to upskill myself. And over the last 3 years, I've realized more and more how essential AI was about to become and has become in pretty much everything we do. So what I have in mind today is really to take the audience through some fundamentals. The outcomes and the key concepts that I'm really sharing with you over the next few minutes are taken from a book. I'll talk about the book towards the end of my talk. That was for me the introduction to all those topics. It's not technical at all, and it approaches artificial intelligence through the lenses of transformation, and measure and provides a historical perspective on the transformative dimension of artificial intelligence. So let's kick it off. A super long-term perspective. We've all learned in school, I don't know if you remember this, 20, 30, 40 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that evolution was smooth, gradual, and was occurring in a continuous, gradual way. And that's the Darwin theory that I'm sure pretty much everybody has heard of. The fact of the matter is, over the last few decades, there's been another approach or another concept that has increasingly been proven to potentially be the right one, and it was put forward by a paleontologist called Stephen J. Cloud, again a few decades ago, that proposes that evolution is not continuous. So if we look at the formation of Earth over the last 4.5 billion years ago, life emerged a billion years after, 3.5 billion years ago. History has actually been a story of successive, violent, and massive transformation. Mass extinction events, where, again, if we look since the Cambrian explosion age, there's been 5 mass extinction events. And in each mass extinction event, roughly 3/4 of living species have been erased, eliminated totally from the planet. That's pretty violent. And like I was saying, the recent discoveries are actually putting a new perspective to how we perceive evolution. So why is that important for us today? Because to a large extent, this is exactly what's happening in technology. Now, before deep diving into technology, let's look at the last the human history, a few million years ago. So fire was discovered 1 million years ago. As you can imagine, there was a before and after. The life before the discovery of fire was radically different from the life after the discovery of fire. When humans were able to master fires, they were able just to radically live differently. followed significantly recently, or more recently, 12,000 years ago, by agriculture. Again, there was a before and an after with a radical transformation. 300 years ago, the invention of steam engine, as you can imagine, trains, the ability to travel has changed radically. 100 years ago, electricity, we were suddenly able to do significantly different things. 50 years ago, transistor. So what's important here is to realize that when those crucial, and again, those are examples, there's a few others, inventions happen, evolution was not gradual and smooth. There was a before and an after. We refer to this as punctuated equilibrium, i.e., there is gradual change until there is a violent transformative event from an innovation perspective that drives a reality change. Let's bring this back to the world of technology. Over the last decades, there's been a set of evolutions, or actually inventions, that have accelerated the emergence of AI. And we believe that AI is, similarly to the invention of the transistor, now 70 years ago, roughly 70 years ago, has the potential to change the economic reality in a similar way. Now, let's look at what happened over the last 2 decades. Since 2000, roughly 52, so that's one out of 2 company out of the Fortune 500, which are pretty much the 500 biggest companies in the world, were either acquired, merged, or bankrupt. What does that mean? That means that basically 1 out of 2 of those great companies over the last 2 decades are not the same anymore. That's not 10 or 20%, and I really want us to take those percentages in mind. 2 decades is nothing in the perspective of human history. Nevertheless, half of the 500 biggest companies have radically changed. Many great companies have disappeared. I mean, the classics we tend to put forward are companies like Kodak, Westinghouse, that were dominating their market. And new companies have emerged pretty much out of nowhere with a totally different identity. Tesla is an example, vis-a-vis the likes of BMW, Volkswagen, and a few others. And again, you all know those examples. But it's from my perspective at least, massively important to keep in perspective the fact that all of this happened over the last 2 decades, 20 years. Why is that? Well, because of digital transformation, pretty much. Huh? That's a term that you've heard a lot, that is extremely well documented. From our perspective, if we were to simplify what we believe has really happened, it's the coming together of 4 major technologies that are not necessarily recent, but have accelerated a lot and are combining into basically violently accelerating the potential of transformation through digital means. What are those 4 technologies? First one is cloud, elastic cloud computing. So again, if we were to demystify what it is and what's not, well, it's free to extremely affordable, unlimited computation and data storage capabilities. Now, we tend to forget the implication that has. You have more power in your iPhone, more computational and data storage power in your iPhone in 2020 or 2021 than the NASA had now 50 years ago, or a bit more actually, 50 years ago when they sent a man to the moon. This device, as again, let me repeat this because it's important, has more computational and data storage capacity than NASA. So theoretically, I could be able to send a man to the moon with that device, purely in terms of computation and data storage capabilities. The second lever is big data. You've all heard about big data, but fundamentally, what it is that there's data pretty much everywhere. that can be then captured for virtually no cost. And that data is changing the way we do science, it's changing the way we predict things. Fundamentally, we were approaching the world, essentially over the last few centuries at least, through physics, through mathematics, through chemistry, which are all sciences that are based on assumptions, theory. We now have a fundamentally new mean, and that's lever number 3, AI and machine learning. So what is it? The fundamentals behind AI and ML are far from new, and actually were put forward after the Second World War. And as you might have read, but there was a lot of winters and summers and winters of summer of AI over the last few decades. The concepts, the mathematical or statistical approaches behind artificial intelligence, more importantly machine learning, again, like I said, were not new, but we were limited in our ability to execute on those concepts, essentially because of the lack of pillar 1 and pillar 2. Pillar number 4 is IoT. I've been working in massive industrial companies for the last 20, 25 years. And it's amazing how IoT is being implemented in those companies. In areas where there was limited to no data, we've got abundance of data. Machines that are being put in motion, turbines, for example, that 2 decades ago, 3 decades, 4 decades ago, were either not censored or lightly censored, are being censored heavily nowadays. We're actually putting sensors in places where, at this point of time, we don't really need data. But because the sensors are so cheap, we're putting there, we're capturing the data, because we might later on, during the life of that asset, need the data. And because of the marginal cost it represents to actually put sensors, we prefer to do it upfront than to have to basically revamp the machine later on. Now, again, if we step back, if we look at those 4 pillars, they're coming together to accelerate digital transformation. And you can see some of the numbers on the back of, on the bottom of the slides. It's believed to be 10 times faster. Digital transformation is 10 times faster. It has a magnitude of scalability of 300 times. So we believe that the potential impact on how we live, how we create value, how we go about organizing ourselves is potentially around 3,000 times what we've seen during the industrial revolutions. Now, those numbers might seem scary or unrealistic, but I just want to, again, bring you back to one of the things I was putting forward a few minutes ago. Over the last 2 decades, that's only 20 years, 1 company out of 2 has radically changed. Of the biggest companies in the world, the 500, the Fortune 500, has radically changed. That's an overview of the value, sorry for that, value release potential per annum. Those calculations keep on evolving. We're talking about trillions of dollars of value release. Now, what does value release mean? It's value creation. That means that if you're on the right side of the equation, you've got the ability to capture additional value. But if if you're on the wrong side of the equation or the fence, well, that's value destruction for you because someone else is capturing that value, and you're not. So you're going out of business. That's pretty much a historical perspective, and more importantly, the forces we see in action in the world of AI. Now, let's try to bring back this discussion to Lebanon. And again, we're all aware of the super difficult times our country is going through. And I have to say that Beirut AI and the team behind Beirut AI has done an amazing job in creating a lively community, driven by the same purposes, interested by the same topics, and ultimately is trying to raise the bar by facilitating the access to capabilities, to knowledge, sharing best practices, and organizing events like this. And this is a step in the right direction, definitely. I'm just going to put forward two things. First, and knowing that obviously we're limited because of the non-existing of a super effective state in place. We all know what the political landlocked we are operating under, and the financial and economical distress that hit our country. But nevertheless, there were a few examples of success in the region. Again, I'll deep dive into a program I'm quite close to, which is the one that was put together now actually a few years ago by the UAE called BRAIN, which is the UAE National Program for AI. And again, there's a link here. Please have a look. Fundamentally, it's recognizing multiple things. It's recognizing the fact that AI is central. It has the potential to create significant value at a national level. You can see a few of the numbers here. They estimate the economical boost to be above, to be in the range of 150 to 200 billion dollars. They also recognize the fund and has the potential to change the way government operates. And you can see $3 billion of government saving. And around that, there's a strong governance. They're trying to capture knowledge, and they're providing the key enablers at a national level, at an infrastructure level, but also the right incentives for corporations to go about hiring and empowering the right level of capabilities individuals. That's an example. How do we put this in motion in Lebanon? That's the million-dollar question, if not more. Obviously, initiatives like Beirut AI are, like I was saying, definitely a step in the right direction. I would encourage, given again the constraints we are all operating under, to build capabilities, to obviously try to join startups in Lebanon that have succeeded in the space of AI. There are a few that I'm aware of. We were discussing this with some of the Beirut AI folks recently, but also try as much as possible to, and that's one of the impacts of the coronavirus crisis the world has been going through for the last year and a few months now. With remote working, it does actually open a lot of opportunities for young Lebanese developers to work for companies abroad and gain the type of experience that will help them to basically start being active in that field. I've shared on the Slack group a few of the books that I've gone through recently on AI that I found super insightful. So please do check the books on Slack and do ask the Beirut AI team to forward those books to you, as I found them super interesting. And the last thing I'm going to put forward is also the book that I've used to develop some of the slides that I've taken you through, which is a book, and you can see the link on the bottom of some of the slides I've shared before. Digital Transformation, written by Tom Siebel, that from my perspective does provide that high-level overview needed to understand what's at stake at the moment in the space of AI. That's pretty much what I had in mind. I look forward actually engaging with a lot of you in the next few minutes through a constructive Q&A. So thank you very much, and looking forward to doing so.
Thank you, Jean-Paul, for your talk. This was really insightful and very inspiring, actually. So if you guys have questions for Jean-Paul, you can send them in the chat or in the Q&A. And at the same time, right after the Q&A session is over, Jean-Paul will be with us in a networking session. So you can join the sessions where you can get introduced to Jean-Paul, ask him questions if you have, and maybe give comments on the talk that he has just given. So if you have any questions, go ahead and share them now so we can bring them to Jean-Paul so he can answer you.
That's the moment of truth, Dalia. If there's no questions, that means that what I was putting forward wasn't that inspiring nor interesting.
No, it was actually very, very interesting. So I think that's Okay, so I think we can join the networking session with you, Jean-Paul. So maybe this way attendees are a bit more comfortable asking the questions instead of in the chat. So if you go, guys, to the sessions menu on the left and you scroll down, there's a networking session entitled Networking with Jean-Paul Sacy. So you can join it and you will get to meet him there as well.
Super. Dalia, thanks a lot. I'm looking
Thank you.
forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Jean-Paul.